All right, folks, let's try this again. See if we are live and well. Hopefully you can hear and see me fine. Apparently some could, some couldn't. So we're back to try this again. Let me know you can see and hear me just fine when you jump on board. And hopefully we'll get this working. Don't know why it wouldn't be working, but yeah. So we've got 3-4 people adding up. So yeah, don't know what the problem was there, folks, but hopefully you can see and hear me just fine. Let me know, and let me know that I'm live. If there was an issue with some people, so let me good. Everything looks to be good now. Thumbs and hearts across the screen. There we go now, said the people having trouble. So, yeah, I mean, that's technology, I guess. So, good. All right, now it's working. Everybody's fine. Yay! We got and we okay. There must have been a problem because there's way more people than it showed me earlier when I logged in. So Sunday breakfast with the coach. I'm going to get going as we add people. Appreciate the hearts and thumbs, folks. That's awesome. As I told you before, Facebook likes that, so it's very important in order to get a reach. So that's very important as well. So. Yeah, it's my refeed day, as most of you who tune in regularly know. So, had my first meal of 6 breakfast sausages and a box of Fruit Loops. So I'm all carved up and ready to go. So we will we'll go on. Now I'm going to post. I'm going to post this link when I'm done. But I thought it was. Oh, I like that. Good morning to all our Sunday friends. That's a good one. Be more inclusive. That's good. Yeah, so morning to everybody from everybody else. So that's good too if you're a regular, tune in regularly. So I will post this link after. Now, most of this link isn't very informative. It's more of a shout out. It's more of a call out for help. It's more of a government kind of thing. But I think it's worthy of discussion, so I am going to discuss a little of that here. I'll get to your questions in a minute, but the headline is, this comes from Australia, and the headline is that suicide is up to 31 times more likely for people with eating disorders. The Butterfly Foundation, Australia's leading organization for eating disorders, is sounding a Mayday alarm on the unacceptable number of eating disorder deaths due to suicide and medical complications in Australia. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I'll post the link after, because this isn't just a problem in Australia. And if someone would make the Butterfly organization aware, and the organizations in North America aware, if they ever did a study on the amount of people competing, females competing in the physique world, and they correlate that with the number of increase in eating disorders and suicides due to increased eating disorders, they would, I am sure, see a definite correlation in these things. That's why I got out of training people for competitions. Sad but true. Now, this is all interesting read, and everyone thinks, oh, well, that's interesting, that's not me. But when it hits close to home, it becomes a whole different matter. I once had a client a long time ago, going back more than 10 years, I guess, a male client who wanted desperately more than anything to have a great physique. He wanted to be like an Andy Sinclair kind of thing. And he was very successful in his business. Financial investor, invested his friend's money, invested his own money, things like that. Yet he felt incomplete without the physique that he always dreamed of, and he used to fly me out to where he lives and train him and things like that. And I ended up telling him one time, look, you just don't have the genetics for this. I mean, you can train hard and do it to stay healthy and do it to look good, relatively speaking, but you're never going to have the physique that you think you should have. And so having heard that kind of honesty from me, and everyone who's with me knows I'm all about truth and honesty. So thanks, Monica, for posting the Butterfly Foundation link. I will post this study as well. Anyway, he quit with me so he could find another coach who would, of course, sell him all kinds of steroids and things like that. And about a year later, maybe a little more than a year later, I got a frantic call from someone I'd never met and didn't recognize the name, and got on the phone with this person who, after my experience with this client, ended up being his girlfriend, and she called to inform me that he hung himself in rehab, and that he was gone. So this whole eating disorders and suicide is 31% more likely. People with eating disorders is relevant and true, and I've seen it firsthand. But not only that, folks, let's not look at the absolute. Let's not look at the suicide is 31% more likely, or 31 times more likely, not 31% more likely. Let me look. Sorry, I'm trying to read your comments at the same time. Not only is it 31 times more likely, but what about the people who don't commit suicide? Because there's a whole level in there of depression and anxiety and low self-esteem and low sense of self-worth or why live. Really, really no way to live in a world of such abundance that we share and we all have, that we should be grateful for. So yes, this is directly tied to females competing in the figure and physique industry. I wish people would just stop hiding behind the glorification of competing in the physique world. As I've said many times, the human evolved, human beings evolved, the women evolved so we could procreate the species. Women are meant to have twice as much body fat as men, to try, if it's not natural for your own innate physiology to be lean, trying to force yourself to not only be lean but stay lean is very unnatural, and there will be consequences for that. So we need to stop glorifying the whole physique experience and realize what it can lead to. Because even though suicide is 31% more likely for people with eating disorders, what about those who don't commit suicide, whose quality of life has been damaged and affected and diminished for years and years and years? And I deal with that every single day, folks. So I want to read you, sorry, I got my computer there. So I want to read you a letter that sort of reflects all of this, and hopefully you'll follow along, and then I'll get to your questions and answers. But this is important stuff. And then I want to get to something else that's bothering me. So here's letters to the coach. Dear Coach Abel, I wanted to write you to tell you to please keep doing what you are doing. Some of us are actually listening. It's been 2 years since my last competition. I look back on it now, and the only phrase that comes to mind is what a fraud I was then. Here I was telling everyone and anyone how awesome it was to be lean and how fitness is a lifestyle and you have to be disciplined and all the rest of it. What a fraud. None of it was about fitness, and what I was doing wasn't about discipline. It was all about obsession, Scott. I was training up to 3 hours a day near the end, eating barely nothing, and what I did eat I burned off, so my body was constantly starving. I was miserable everywhere except the gym or around other competitors where we all glorified how wonderful it all is. What a crock. I stopped being intimate with my husband, and the response I got from other competitors, even online, was, "Oh, that's normal before a contest." Another dirty little secret of the industry. And this may be normal for competitors, but it's not normal for a healthy marriage. I was short-tempered and irritable with my husband and kids, and yet to everyone else I was always, "This is great, I love competing." Of course I was short-tempered, being so starved I barely slept at all the final weeks before the contest, only adding to how truly unhealthy I really was. What a fraud. Now I ask myself why I needed so much validation for my own body, and I called it all fitness and called it all wonderful. I guess because I had never really been lean or thin before. Suddenly I'm a hottie in the gym, and it all mattered way too much, and I almost lost my family. Over what, I ask myself now. And now I'm 50 pounds heavier than when I competed, which is ironically another 20 pounds heavier than before I ever decided to diet and compete in the first place. I figure this is the cost I have to pay for learning a huge life lesson and living such a lie for so long. But right now I've never been happier, and I'm so glad I escaped that life with just a few hard lessons. And it didn't cost me my family as it has for other competitors that I know and that I know you know as well. Why can't people see how this is just a ridiculous obsession? I'm so grateful for what you do and say. I just wanted to tell you my story and ask you to keep doing what you do. Thank you. So let's look at that. And I appreciate the honesty, this person writing in. We need to stop glorifying the female competitive experience. People online bragging about having a cucumber for a snack or a meal. Reminds me way back when I trained some competitors in the beauty world, pageant competitors who actually thought that gum and coffee was breakfast, things like that. So you're going to do harm to your body. This just invites eating disorders. Like I said, trying to force your body to be lean beyond natural evolved genetics and keep it there, there's going to be ramifications for that. And the risk of eating disorders, even though suicide is 31 times more likely, what about those who don't go as far as committing suicide, but the quality of life that they've lost? All right. And no one wants to admit that, because everyone every year who's new to competing wants to glorify it online, which just adds to more people. I'm tired of people walking up to beautiful young ladies in the gym who are beautiful and naturally beautiful and trying to convince them to, oh, you should compete. You have the body to compete. Well, no, you shouldn't compete. You should protect yourself and protect your beauty. So I'm waxing on here, but that's a letter to the coach. And the Australian shout out that suicide is 31 times more likely for people with eating disorders, and the fact that females competing in the physique world invites eating disorders is a correlation we can't ignore anymore. So I'd like to step up to the plate and ask you all to step up to the plate as well. There's too many people being hurt by all this. I'll get to your comments in a second, but this also reminds me of something I just heard this week, which makes me roll my eyes in sense of ridiculousness and what it's all the pretension online with coaches who are pretenders. Now the latest craze, I'm out of that world, folks. I don't deal with competitors hardly at all, so I don't know what's going on and all those other things. But the new latest craze among coaches to get people's dollars is fixing metabolisms. I can fix your metabolism. Really, you can fix someone's metabolism. Maybe you're the one that caused the metabolism to be broken in the first place by getting them to compete and stand on a stage. Fixing metabolisms among these people who have no degrees in endocrinology or internal medicine, or all they are is contest prep gurus, and suddenly they're able to fix your metabolism. Let me tell you about fixing metabolism, folks. You know what fixes a metabolism? Time and no longer exhausting your body in calorie deficits and over-exercise. That's what fixes your metabolism. Not reverse dieting, not carb backloading, not other nonsense, not, oh, I can stay lean while I fix my metabolism. Cut the bull crap, all right? So there's a reason, folks, that I advertise I can fix a metabolism. I've written 20 books. When your trainer coach who advertises they can fix metabolism has written any books on the subject, then I'll take them seriously. Until then, I roll my eyes because it's an eye roll. This is the latest thing now that other ladies are seeing the light and deciding not to compete and spreading the word, all right? So now what all these coaches are doing, I can fix your metabolism. Really, you've got no experience in that area at all. In the number of books I've written, folks, Beyond Metabolism, Understanding Metabolism, Metabolic Damage and the Dangers of Dieting, Permanent Weight Loss, do you know how many experts I had to read and or interview on and off the record to write those books? I know a little something about this. So once again, people, consumers especially, will flock and herd toward what they want to hear rather than what is. So this new coaching dogma, I can fix your metabolism, or we concentrate more on fixing metabolisms now. Really? Okay, well that's nice. Show me the PhD after your name and maybe I'll start taking that seriously. But when it's a bunch of contest prep gurus and now they're saying they're metabolism fixers, give me a freaking break. So, okay, that's all I got to say about that. I'll get to your comments now, folks. Sorry about the rant, but some things require ranting, okay? So when you've been in this for 4+ decades at the top of the heap, at the top of the industry, folks, I believe that earns me some respect to comment in the way I feel. And that's why I got out of training competitors, because in big, bold capital letters it hit me one night, do no harm. So that's why I moved away from that. So, okay, let me get to your comments now. Hopefully that stuff is resonating. Again, thank you, Monica, for already posting the link. I know there was another link last week from some journal, not journal, just some regular editorial article along the lines of the same letter I just read you. Also from Australia, with some lady admitting to, what damage and what a sham competing was for her. So if someone can find that link, you can post that as well. Ange, I think you sent that to me. Henriette, I appreciate the comment about my knowledge of eating disorders. I wrote a book a long time ago called The Other Side of the Mirror on body image dependency disorder in the fitness industry. I don't sell it anymore. It is on my website, and talking to Dr. James Garner and other eating disorder experts, and of course working now, 25 plus years with ladies with eating disorders, I see just how difficult it is to work through something like that. Unlike alcohol and other drugs that you don't actually need to survive, you need food to survive, so it makes it much more difficult a problem. But food, folks and ladies, is the symptom, not the cause. So people need to understand that. So Tracy says, this brings tears to my eyes. I lost my sister last year, and there was such a battle in her head about her body that she refused to take her medication due to a 6-pound weight gain, 6 lousy pounds. And then I lost the... I can relate, Tracy. I deal with clients who won't take meds for obvious medical issues. Like if you have disrupted sleep or insomnia for going on years, and then you're saying, well, but I refuse to take meds. That makes no sense to me, because it's a medical issue at that point. And we know the power of sleep. I will also post my article, Sleep, the Unsung Hero of Weight Loss. I'll post that link that I wrote, article I wrote. You can go to Scott Abel Fitness /blog and look for it there. Very, very important stuff. So just things like that, folks. Like if you have a medical condition, to think that medication is going to cause all these other issues, you've already got a medical problem. It's like having cancer and saying, but I'm against modern medicine. If you have an issue that's now medical, then you need medical intervention. And insomnia is a medical issue, period. So if you've tried everything else, to say that you're not going to try, and sleep keeps you lean. Regular sleep is what is proven time and time again contributes to weight control and weight loss. So and then a lot of people, someone's just commenting, Monica's just commenting about people coming up to the gym and commenting about you should compete and all this other stuff. And folks, you should be satisfied with a little healthy vanity, training your body to look good, but not training it to extremes, and definitely not training it to stand up and compare yourself to other people. Why? You don't see me all sad and sullen every Thursday on the Coach and Andy show because I'm not 20 years younger and don't look like Andy anymore. I mean, that's just ridiculous to me, okay? So I would say wisdom is the new lean. Wisdom is the new fit. Wisdom is the new strong. And I'm happy being at that point in my life where I can offer those things. So Tracy Lynn just found the link from my sleep article. So please, after this, I'll post this. And again, for those of you watching this on YouTube, go to my Facebook page and find this link, or go to scottabelfitness.com/sleep unsung hero of weight loss. Very good, Tracy. Thank you. So, I just felt the rant was necessary, folks, when I heard this now that coaches are now saying, oh, we concentrate on fixing metabolisms. It just made me roll my eyes. It just... quite the ridiculous notion. So I'm open to your questions, comments, complaints, all these other things. But please, I don't think if I missed a comment, you're gonna have to rewrite it in because I don't see it on my scroll. So hopefully that shook some heads and got people reconsidering. If you're thinking of competing and thinking it's so wonderful, maybe you might want to reconsider that. So, and if you do have post-competition repercussions and consequences, both psychological and physiological, then by all means, reach out, get some help, get some coaching, whatever. But do it intelligently. Do it with people who aren't invested in the competition world. That's the smartest thing to do. Okay, moving on. Anything else, folks? Oh, there we go. I guess I was missing some comments here, folks. Sorry about that. Yeah, my scroll wouldn't work. So Lisa says, I once refused to take my meds for Crohn's as it makes me gain weight. So I suffered for years. Now I've grown up. The meds help me live a better life along with sleep. And it says I can control the disease. Yes, of course. That makes total sense, Lisa. Thanks for sharing that. Very, very important. Coach, how common is it to do 2 half-day refeeds among your clients? And how does one read biofeedback, assure someone is in super comp in the first place before introducing 2 half-day spikes? I do have people on the cycle diet who are doing half-day spikes instead of whole-day spikes because they don't like the feeling of being so full all the time. A lot of the times they just want to have 2 half days. The problem with 2 half days, Bronco, is if I'm saying that right, is that it's easy to slip out of super comp that way. There's not enough time in between refeeds, and it's easy to slip out of super compensation mode, which if you're not in super compensation mode, then the whole notion of the cycle diet breaks down and you don't stay lean by eating that way. Some can. I do have clients who can, but we monitor them closely. And all the signs of what to look for, of course, are in the Cycle Diet book and the Cycle Diet course at thecycle.diet. That's thecycle.diet. Melanie says she's thinking of competing next year but struggling with menopause. So, Melanie, if everything I just said to you doesn't resonate for you to reconsider competing, I don't know what else I can say. This maybe probably isn't the right place for you to get that kind of encouragement or help. So I would say if you're going through menopause and things like that, first thing you want to look at is hormone replacement therapy. I'm a big fan of it, but of course take that up with an endocrinologist in your area. But I would implore you to reconsider competing. What is the value in competing? I will say to this, here's the thing, folks. I said this the other day. I was talking to Krista. You all know Krista, hopefully. Just throw some thumbs across the screen if you know Krista from helping me with my exercise videos, etc., for best exercises for women and a couple of projects I have coming up with Krista. So lovely young lady helping me out with videos and stuff. And we were talking about, because it's competition season here, thanks for the thumbs, folks. We were talking about... I was trying to explain to her these arguments that the competitors are making when they come up to her and glorify competing and how she should compete because she's so beautiful and all these other things. And then I broke it down for her that one of the ladies was telling her she spent $1,000 on her posing suit. And so I said to her, okay, well, here's the thing. Here's a lady who spent $1,000 on her posing suit, entry fee for the contest, membership fee for the local organization you have to be a membership of in order to compete, travel expenses to drive to the contest and stay in a hotel overnight, blah, 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 all for a trophy that she may or may not win. In this particular example, she didn't win. So we worked that out to spending well over $2,000, not to mention months of sacrifice with diet and exhaustion. And here's Krista, who's already making money just helping me with videos without having to diet or overtrain or pound her body into the ground. So we have one person living the fitness lifestyle on one hand, making money, and the other person living the life of obsession on the other hand, spending money. So that's just another way to weigh the consequences of the competition thing. How deep you're willing to go into debt, literally, financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, in order to do what? stand on stage, like you've been rounded up like a herd of cows. It doesn't make any sense to me at all. So, and again, at a certain age, Melanie, when you're going through menopause, my advice, if you read my book, Physique After 50, and my follow-up book to that, The Aging Proposition, in those two books, I talk about at this age how it's more important to focus on working out to feel good, and then any cosmetic benefits of that, you just consider a bonus. So, I work out in a certain way to feel good and to be energized and invigorated. But you should never be training, especially if you're in menopause, undertaking training like you would for a contest to exhaust your body physically and hormonally and biochemically. That makes no sense. So, yeah. Yeah, Tracy's writing about some guru online talking about the difference between white rice and brown rice and all the rest of the nonsense. Yeah, I could care less about about all this microanalysis that someone's doing online to try and make themselves sound smart. That's what happens when you're when you're in the lower end of the business. You think you can convince people by trying to make yourself sound smarter. A lot of the times that's what leads people actually to stealing other people's work, like people who steal mine and represent it as their own. Good morning, Walker C. Clark from North Carolina. Got a lot of North Carolina people and South Carolina as well. Bronk asking about the 10% rule. I don't like looking at numbers like that. So, yeah, I won't address that any deeper than that. Melanie writes in, thank you, love listening. Great, Melanie, if I give you something to think about and I can, steer you at least to consider, a different approach to maybe not competing or finding another way, then that's great. And of course, decision is always up to the people listening. So, that's important as well. So, very, very, very important that people keep an open mind and, they try to assimilate what we're saying here and then make a decision on the best course of action for yourself, of course. Chad, do I think performance-enhancing drugs are worse now than in the 80s and 90s in the bodybuilding physique game? Hang on. Oh, scrolling's happening fast and furious. If so, do you think it's because of the abundance of information on the internet? Oops, I am noticing... Oh, and then it cuts off. So listen, Chad, good point. And I could do a whole several friggin' breakfasts with the coaches and podcasts about steroids and PEDs and the sport. Of course, I was heavily involved in that, right? The magazines used to get me to write articles on that because they bought Robert Kennedy, publisher of Muscle Mag, said I was the most knowledgeable person he'd ever met when it came to steroids and things like that. But I didn't get into this to become a chemist. I didn't get into this lifestyle to become a chemist and to be an expert in how to take drugs and pass drug tests and stuff. And that's what I was becoming. And I didn't like it. And then I was watching all these physiques being built by drugs but not effort, which to me kind of like showed a lack of integrity for the whole reason I was involved in it to begin with. So that's why I kind of had to leave it behind. Yeah, it's way worse now than the 80s and 90s. The amount of drugs being taken, I did this on one of my Smartest Sculpted Physique podcasts where a guy wrote in who was a world champion, and he wrote me his stack, and it was just a scroll list of nonsense. I lost track of how many drugs he was taking, and his body was like a pincushion. And for me, I don't know where the honor is in that. And maybe for some people, it's not about being honorable; it's about being noticed. So more power to them. But yeah, it used to be where a little performance enhancing drugs was a lot like just taking supplements. But now it's out of control, and it's now the world of cult following, subculture with the word cult in capital letters. So it's a drug subculture, absolutely. I got out of it when Figure started becoming huge, And I started noticing that figure athletes, and this is 10 years ago, they would have won nationals in female bodybuilding just like 3 or 4 years previous to that. So when I started noticing that, and now I get bikini athletes writing me who are on clenbuterol and Anavar and growth hormone and Cytomel, and these are bikini athletes. They've barely even been training. And then what the males are taking is just like, it's just unbelievable. It's just a drug subculture, and I didn't want to be part of it anymore. Plus, as my body started to age, things change. What your body can tolerate, even with exogenous attack from outside in pharmaceuticals, in your 20s and 30s, doesn't respond to so well when you get a little older. So, yeah, I mean, but yeah, without getting into details, Chad, because I'm not that guy anymore, even though I could talk about it. I probably have more knowledge than half the people doling out steroid advice. Yeah, it's bad. It's insane, actually, which is one of the reasons, I had to get out. It just made no sense to me anymore. In my day, a little bit of steroids and things like that. And now, of course, just before I got out, we added in growth hormone and insulin injections. And I actually had a client who got into growth hormone and insulin in the early days, took some insulin after his workout, had a diabetic reaction, and sideswiped about 10 cars on his way driving home from the gym. Now, he got charged, of course. He got out of it because he told the truth about taking insulin and not knowing what the hell he was doing. But imagine, had there been a child on the street walking in between those parked cars, he could have killed somebody. So I know these are extreme examples, but they're real ones. So all that kind of stuff, when it added up, this was around the same time where I'm telling you about the client of mine where I heard about where he hung himself and all the rest. I mean, you're just around insanity any more than you realize. If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So I had to get out. So let me just see. I think I missed a couple comments here. Let me scroll down. The comments, sometimes there's none, and then they come in fast and furious. So what kind of training would I recommend to women post-comp who don't want to compete anymore but want to maintain an active, healthy lifestyle? Well, an active, healthy lifestyle type of training, Lori. Simple but effective. So not metabolically exhausting. Something that's going to sort of transition someone from who's been exhausting their body to now invigorating their body. Sometimes that will require some time off, but that would require individual assessment. Henriette says, I was anorexic for many years, 20 plus years, and even though I'm eating normal, it still haunts me on a daily basis. I am also in the fitness industry, and yes, hiding behind that is definitely something that feeds into feeds into me. Yeah, you don't want to know how many people, Henriette, I have that I know who have full-blown eating disorders, who are themselves coaches for competition, and that makes me puke. Advertising themselves, again, the healthy, wonderful glorification of the competition experience, and yet they're writing me behind the scenes feeling like frauds and binge eating. And I used to have I had a client who was a coach and a successful coach, binge eater, of course, in the closet. It wasn't up to me to expose her, but nonetheless, it bothered me. Binge eating to such an extent, I used to have her pour vinegar on her food, that she would go buy all her junk food in an impulse, pour vinegar on it, and put it at the bottom of her garbage, and she would still go retrieve it. She wouldn't always eat it because it was inedible. But this is the kind of impulse control. And then on the other side of that, within a week of doing that, she's posting pictures of herself in a bikini and saying how wonderful it is. So these are the kind of experiences I have in my noggin. If people are saying, that I'm not being fair or I'm one-sided. No, I've got the experience and the objectivity of having this stuff in my head year in and year out, week in and week out. So that's where I'm coming from. There's a in my book, the Other Side of the Mirror, I talk about the mutual affinity, the mutual attraction of people with body image problems and competing in the fitness industry, and people with body image issues, of course, and eating disorders, which also go together. Kind of like a 1-2 punch, kind of like a Bonnie and Clyde, to rob you of your dignity and self-esteem. So I wish people would just come out and say, I want to go from the fitness lifestyle to the healthy lifestyle that includes both, and get away from competition. How can I do that? Instead of hiding behind competition as a way to legitimize some real deep issues going on. And yeah, so that's why I brought that to the attention. So dead is dead, folks. Suicide 31 times more likely with people with eating disorders, and Australia is just ahead of the game. I'm sure it's worse than that in North America, and just nobody's studying it. And I'm sure if they studied the correlation between the increase in competitors every year in physique contests and the increases in reported eating disorders and suicides from that, they would see a very strong correlation pattern emerge as well. So, but who's going to study that? Not too many people are going to get funding to study that, but I know it exists because that's my experience. So, Lori, you're more than welcome. What else do we have, folks? And Henriette, of course, appreciate you sharing as well. Anorexia is any eating disorder is a very tough thing to get past. And notice I didn't say conquer. We got too much of that battle mentality going on. And remember, what you resist persists. So if you have that battle mentality, you're never going to get rid of it because you're always in the ring battling. My approach to helping people solve an eating disorder is to stay out of the battle ring entirely. Why enter the ring just to get pummeled? Whether you win one round or you're still in the ring battling, and that makes no sense because it just keeps the battle alive constantly. The right thing to do is learn how to let it go, and then it won't, quote unquote, haunt you on a daily basis like you're saying, Henriette. But that that's a process too, and it takes time, but I wish you the best in that, of course. So appreciate you being honest. It's tough to be honest when in the physique world, all anyone wants to see is how you look in your bikini. That's like a tip of an iceberg though, right, folks? I mean, oh, look at that wonderful, beautiful iceberg. Well, what's going on below the surface of the water? So, there's a lot of emotional fitness and spiritual fitness issues that all this stuff raises, which is a subject for another time, I guess. But I could read letters to the coach forever. I got a whole file full of them of people who written me whose lives have pretty much been destroyed by competing, lost their spouse and kids or whatever, and it goes on every single year. So, but I mean, now what bothers me is the latest, coach claims of fixing metabolism. Like, just give me a break with that one. So moving on, is there any other comments? I look like I've scrolled down. I think I've got them all. So, yeah, I think I've seen them all. Another thing, Tracy says it's so sad so many people don't place a higher value on themselves. Or Tracy, it's so sad that women end up filtering self-image only through body image. If it was the other way around, then they would be happy with their bodies and they could work to improve them in a more self-connecting way, rather than a self-disconnecting way that competition tends to do. So it shouldn't be about judging your body compared to someone else's, but that's really, really common with the females, So as we said in my podcast with Krista Scott Dixon at Smarter Sculpted Physique, for those of you who listen to that podcast, Krista is a PhD in women's studies, and we talked about that famous quote that men look at women, but women look at themselves being looked at. So there's always that, look in the mirror, does this dress make me look fat? Kind of immediate impulse kind of thing that we need to get away from, Instead, it should be, how beautiful does this dress make me look? Or how wonderful do I feel in this dress? Rather than, because the phrase, folks, that I feel fat, well, fat isn't a feeling. So let's get to what you really feel when you say, I feel fat in this dress or in this outfit or whatever. Fat's not a feeling. So the minute you're saying that, you're actually disconnecting from your own emotional fitness because you're not describing an actual feeling. So you need to get to, that level of self-connection for good and bad, positive and negative, but you need to be honest about that. So that's enough lecturing on that. Any questions on diet or training or things like that? I'm back to Melanie, I think it was, going through menopause. Hopefully, Melanie, you're seeing a specialist in endocrinology or internal medicine or things like that, not just a family doctor, and you're getting some HRT. I'm a strong believer in that. And the latest thing, of course, is testosterone as part of hormone replacement for women. Really, really being effective. Of course, you have to have an endocrinologist who's in the know on that. So that's something you could explore as well. So Keith asked, what's my opinion on precision nutrition and John Berardi? I don't really know much about it. I know we developed intensive courses online. Some of my clients have taken them. I know Krista Scott Dixon is part of that, and she was on my podcast, and I've been a big fan of hers for a long, long time. Just as a lady who is comfortable with who she is and how she is, and that kind of thing. So here's an example, using Krista Scott Dixon as an example in body image and self-confidence. She used to have a website, or maybe she still does, called Stumptuous. And so on my podcast, I asked her, like, what's with the word stumptuous? What does that even mean? And her reply was that she's always had the physique that was basically stumpy. So here's the thing. Instead of trying to live in denial of that, or trying to change that and disliking it and disliking herself because of it, what did she do? She turned it into a word that she could embrace. So she turned stumpy, which implies some negative connotations, and she made the word stumptuous, which implies beauty and self-respect and that kind of thing. So that's the ways people can do those kind of things. So, there's a good example right there of embracing your body image, whatever it may be, and working from there. So it's not like she doesn't work out or anything anymore. She leads a fitness lifestyle and is a leader in it. But the word stumptuous says it all. She embraced the body she has, didn't try to deny it or resist it or hate on it. All right. So as I always say, no one ever self-hated their way to a worthy accomplishment. So keep that in mind. Tracy Lynn just saying that hormone replacement therapy changed her life. So yeah, I'm a big believer in it. Do I have any advice? Valerie writes, do I have any advice in terms of training and nutrition for someone who would have lost muscle due to ongoing digestive issues? My look is a little softer and flat than what I would like at the same weight a year ago. Well, it depends on what the digestive issues are. Most digestive issues, though, Valerie, come from the emotional realm. Because the neurotransmitters of emotion and wellness, there's just as many in the gut as there is in the brain, and they interplay with each other. So a lot of the times it's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. So that's something to suggest as well. So, something to look into. But training is always, in terms of looking soft or looking hard, it's the program you're doing and the diet you're following. So I would suggest maybe having someone take a look at your programming. Maybe there's something you could do better in there. So Laura Lee Finnegan, what a great name. Wow, that's a mouthful. What a great name that is. Just started following you on the last 2 weeks. Thank you for the 4-day program samples. Should women follow the Met bodybuilding or figure? Beginner in the mid-30s, sudden weight gain here. I would say start with the beginner figure program, my ultimate figure program, and it's a course as well, so people can follow along the lines there with the reasoning and the logic behind the course design and the program design. So that might be something I would consider that over jumping right into metabolic training. Laura Lee, I think that would make better sense. It's always better, folks, everyone listening, it's always better to undertrain than to overtrain. So remember that. Another reason to get out of the competition world where you're constantly overtrained. So that's important as well. And remember, fixing metabolism isn't about magic coaches with magic solutions. It's about time and no longer being in an exhaustive state, no longer underfeeding and overtraining. So Michelle writes in, I do hormone replacement therapy with testosterone, feeling so much better these days, both physically and emotionally. Yeah, that seems to be Michelle, that seems to be the common sentiment with ladies who get testosterone as part of their HRT. It seems to just do really, really good. So, yeah. Monica writes, what causes food addiction and how is it different from alcohol? It's not different. It starts as usually what I call a maladaptive coping strategy. People start using food or avoiding food as methods to cope with emotional issues and feelings they don't want to cope with at the time. So unraveling that takes time, because now most women will still see it as a food issue even when you tell them it's not. So until they can get past that food is just a symptom and start working on the underlying causes, then it remains an addiction. Same thing with alcohol. I once used the word food addiction is what we call one of the soft addictions, because I read an expert referring to the hard addictions versus the soft addictions, but I was quickly corrected on that some time ago. People who were suffering from those were quite offended by my use of the term soft. They saw it as connotative, where I was trying to be denotative. But yeah, it's always a coping strategy, Monica. Almost always, 99% of the time, it's a maladaptive coping strategy for circumstances in someone's life and situations in someone's life they try to avoid, or they try to relieve a certain emotion, and they turn to food, just like other people did with alcohol or other drugs. So that's important. My episode with Krista Scott Dixon, folks, is Smarter Sculpted Physique, episode 52. Thanks for Ange for showing that. Yeah. Laura Lee, my pleasure. Okay. There's a good one. Hashmat writes in, any insight on the month of Ramadan? Yes. Wow, great question. Appreciate that. Yes, it's Ramadan again. And I have coached several people who are Muslim and who practice Ramadan, which means they can't eat, during daylight hours, and that changes everything. Now, I wrote about this when I wrote my scathing article on intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting being another one of these glorified lifestyles that's ridiculous. Here's the thing. Ramadan is actually intermittent fasting, if you think about it. You can't eat during daylight hours, all right? You can only eat after dusk as part of the sacrifice. And let anyone who does a month of Ramadan, all right, tell you that that's easy and healthy and a lifestyle they'll choose to do forever. There's a reason it only goes on for a month, and there's a reason it's considered a sacrifice, because it's bloody hard. So that's an example of the intermittent fasting, and that's an example of how and why intermittent fasting makes no sense. So regardless of any kind of nonsensical research behind it, it's not natural to the human brain. It's not how we evolved to eat. To be in denial of it and sacrificing of it is very unnatural. That's why it's a religious sacrifice, folks. So, my insight in the month of Ramadan is how it explains how and why intermittent fasting is a joke. So, go to my blog again, scottabelfitness.com/blog. Look for my article on intermittent fasting, the diet of sumo wrestlers. Sumo wrestlers also follow an intermittent fasting variation where they skip breakfast and tend to eat one large meal a day deliberately to gain visceral fat. So look into that article as well, folks. I've written extensively on this stuff. It's not just willy-nilly. So find that at scottabelfitness.com/blog, and someone probably will post. If you look in the comments afterwards, folks, I'm sure someone will find that article and post it here in the comment section for you as well. So, yeah. Oh, Mike, I appreciate that. Mike is just reiterating my comment. It's not what you're eating, it's what's eating you. That's kind of a famous comment, Mike, in the eating disorder world. in terms of treating eating disorders and gastrointestinal issues that tend to be emotional in cause, which again, see, here's the other thing, folks, and then I'll finish on this. Here's the other thing. When people confuse cause and effect, so they have gastrointestinal disorders, what do? They go to a food allergist, right? And they take the skin test and, oh, suddenly they've got all these food allergies. Oh, well, that makes sense. I'll just avoid 20 of my favorite foods. All right. And yet the underlying cause is neurotransmitter related in the gut that's affecting digestion. They don't really have full-blown food allergies. All right. They have a sensitivity to certain foods because their guts are sensitive because of not dealing with emotional stuff. So again, so cause and effect. For instance, one of the other examples I use all the time, lately on TV, there's all these commercials for certain mattress and certain pillows. And if you don't sleep at night, this mattress is the solution or this pillow is the solution. You know what? Maybe sometimes it is. Maybe you do need a new mattress and a new pillow. But oftentimes, let's face it, folks, 80% of the people who have sleep issues, it's because something's on their mind. And they don't practice good sleep hygiene. They stay up too late. They don't practice regular sleep and wake habits. It's not their mattress and it's not their pillow. All right? It's their habits. So, but people like the simple solutions. The problem is they look in the wrong place for them. So that's sort of what I do as a coach, is unravel the truth. Try to get people to face what maybe they're unwilling to face. So in terms of Ramadan diet plan and exercise recommendation, I just, the best thing you can do, Hashmat, is stick to healthy whole foods, unprocessed foods. Eat as much as you can in the time you're allowed to eat. And try to keep your training regimentation as close to prescription as possible. If you're lacking energy, then you'll probably need longer rest periods, maybe cut down on the volume of your training, that kind of thing, because there's a lack of calorie sustenance coming in, things like that. So, yeah. Oh, Laura Lee, no problem. Yeah, and Monica's just saying how great the Ultimate Figure program is, so I appreciate that. Folks, you can find the Ultimate Figure course on Udemy, Udemy. The whole course is on there, at least for now. So, yeah. Lydia says, someone I know was told that she is borderline diabetic, runs in her family, and many people on social media recommend the keto diet. Oh, God. And that she should avoid carbs, sugar, and all the usual stuff. Wow. Listen, the keto diet to combat diabetes, again, oh boy. That's like taking a sledgehammer to open a can of tuna. All right. It's ridiculous. It's extreme. It's unnecessary. Again, I've dealt with type 2 diabetics in my training. Guess what we have? A carb-based whole foods diet. And I have a few clients, they might even be on here. No, he's not on here today. All these problems, high A1C, blood pressure, everything. Guess what? A high unprocessed, high-carb diet with starches and fruits and veggies, and he's off his blood pressure medication and his diabetic medication. There's way too many. Lydia, I'm glad you asked that, but God, it's just reflective of how many online idiots there are out there. Everyone is an online expert, online there's just all chiefs and no Indians. It just makes no sense. Everyone's a general and no one's a soldier. That's just, yeah, it makes no sense at all. So, yeah, wow. Tracy says it's the most impactful live feed I've attended. Well, I appreciate that. Other people probably won't find it that way because they don't like that. So, yeah, Lydia's just saying all these common things now. Yeah, you find a new thing someone can be a victim of, Lydia, and hide behind. And I've seen that I'm an old fart. So, yeah, I mean, anything someone can hide behind nutritionally to blame their weight problems and other issues on, they're going to do that. In the 70s, it was all about bacteria in the gut, and then that changed, and now it's leaky gut syndrome, and and all these other things, which everyone has, of course. Everyone was gluten intolerant 5 years ago till the academic world crushed that modern opinion. So now it's leaky gut and anything else someone can hide behind, and everyone has it. Sometimes, I just can't help people who don't want to help themselves. They'd rather be victims and say, well, I have to eat this way and I can't train that way. And really all the signs point to, no, you just have that in your head and it's not the truth. So, that's too bad. And you got to watch that people have something to sell. So, they're going to try to paint everyone with the same brush, right? If you have a system, right, of dieting or supplements that help against leaky gut, then you want as many people as possible to think they have leaky gut because they're going to buy your crap. That's sort of how the online system works, right? Convince everyone that sodium's bad and then just happen to have a sodium-free product that you can sell. I mean, that's how it works. It's the same thing with expertise as well. So that's important. Good comments, Lydia. Appreciate them. And then, so folks, I think that's my hour. So this was a Sunday Breakfast with the Coach. I hope you enjoyed it. And I hope you're more aware. And I hope if you're considering competing, you'll reconsider, or you'll share this with people who might be considering competing or glorifying it to the nth degree. So I appreciate it, folks. And Monica just posted the Udemy link for the Ultimate Figure program. So look for that in the comment section as well. And I guess I will see you all next week. By all means, keep your comments going, and please share this. I'll post it soon. And by all means, share this every week and build our audience. So thanks for being out there. If you weren't, it wouldn't make much sense for me being in here. So I'm off for my summer Sunday morning walk, clear my noggin, and I appreciate the hearts and the thumbs, folks. And I'll see you all next week. Thank you again.